and welcome to another episode of Sisters on the Weekend. She is Lil Sis.
And she is Big Sis, and we're back with another episode, baby.
Another episode. Okay, Lil Sis, you can take us away with the topic for today, please.
Be sure to repost and review this episode and our other episodes. And this episode is Frenemies. So, is she really your friend? Is that really your sis? I had a lot of different scenarios that I've dealt with this issue. To start, frenemies is really like friends, and then certain people select you as well, so that could be based on like jealousy. Most of it's rooted by jealousy. They'll make slight comments, but then also on the back end they'll do things that a friend would do, which you would consider like nice things, like offer to hang out or offer to study, because most of my friendships were in like academic settings, to pick you up, etc. So then you'd be like, okay, so we're friends, you want to hang out, but you also act weird in front of different people. Like, you say sly comments, which I feel like is never nice, and I feel like friends shouldn't do. Yes, you can correct your friend, but I feel like you should take them to the side. I feel like things shouldn't be done in a way where it's embarrassing to the other. And when it is, I feel like that's your enemy. Like, why would a friend do that? So yeah, frenemies. But the root of all frenemies, I feel like, is when there are three-way friendships. Three-way friendships is when the relationship crumbles to pieces. Especially over time. It might start off well, the three-way friendships, but three-way friendships plus. So 4, 5, 6, whatever. I think they start off well, but then once you start to learn each person, you'll realize that you have a stronger connection with one over the other, and then that's when things start to happen.
I wanted to kind of speak on frenemies in general. I don't know when this term came about, but I think it's fairly new. In the sense of, I don't remember hearing this term when I was younger. And the fact that we even had to put a name on it shows how widespread it is. But I agree with Lil Sis's definition of frenemies. But I did want to just say, I think it's where, it's a regular friendship on the surface, but the motives and the intention behind the friend that's giving you these bad comments and feelings and so on and so forth is not good. So it's kind of like a love-hate situation where they want to be your friend. So they like you in some instances, but they don't in others. And it's not a natural dislike. It's something that's deep-seated and rooted, and it probably has nothing to do with you, but it can become dangerous. Not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally, because it will put you in a situation where you're constantly questioning, like, did she just say that? Or is that bad? Or am I tripping? And even if you bring, from my experience, I don't want to speak generally across the board, but from my experience, even if you bring up the issue or say, hey, when you said that made me uncomfortable, or why did this happen? The person usually may just say, I didn't mean it like that, or what do you mean? So it can put you in a cycle of constantly questioning yourself and your reality and your experience with the person, even though your gut feeling and your intuition or your discernment may be telling you that there's a problem there. So I just wanted to express that.
I agree. And also, I would like to add, like, in most frenemy situations, other people um, can see that
Mm.
the person may not like you because when they make these sly comments, etc., it's usually in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then you're like, oh no, she's my friend because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like others are, can see it more apparent. Also, just to add to before I go into the stories, like I feel like in some like friendships or just interactions with females, they're very catty and
Mm-hmm.
petty. So it's like even if you consider somebody your friend, they might do things that you feel like is inappropriate. But I don't think all the time that makes them a friend to me. I think when it's constant, that's when they become.
For me, I think it's just frenemy because there's no room for that
Mm-hmm.
because everything, those sort of
I'm
like
saying, yeah, at
reactions.
this age, yeah, there's no room for that. But I'm thinking like high school, middle school, like people just, I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
some of that I think maybe grace can be
Yeah,
given,
but with age,
but
yeah, right from, like, you're trying to read somebody, you trying to da da da, yeah.
right, and you know what embarrassment is, you know what putting somebody down is, you know the reaction to your actions, and you also are only going to do what someone allows you to do. So there could be a level of manipulation there as well because you know like, oh, she's not going to say anything, or so there may be some gratification that's coming from you being able to um jab people on the low. But I did want to say that the issue with being close to frenemies is that the the what they're putting out doesn't go into thin air. It's getting on to you. So they being nasty with you, it's taking a toll on you. Even if it's on a very small level, eventually it'll add up. So they could be slowly tearing up your confidence or your outlook on things, or slowly making you question your judgment. You know, because if someone is constantly making comments or doing small things, so frenemy, some of this is beyond just comments. It can literally be somebody acting out in certain ways, but it's just not pleasing to you, and you don't feel like it goes with the friendship and what you expected. But over time, that really can take a toll, and it can build up to frustration, mistrust of people, and so on and so forth. And sometimes it could be physical injury that's caused. The girlies have put out quite a bit of content on YouTube regarding friends switching up, turning their backs on them. Um, Miami is where friendships go to be tested. Like if you can go to Miami for a few days and make it back the same, y'all might be friends.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I think just in general, the introduction of like drinks
Men,
and
I was about to say
club scene and
men,
guys
yes.
and outfits and
Yeah.
hair, and it's kind of like all these different elements put together. Um, yeah, because I don't want nobody close to me that's in competition. I think that's where some of that come from. People in secret competition, like, oh, constantly comparing and, so on and so forth. So I'll let you take it away as far as your stories. I talked too much on that one. So.
Oh no, it was perfect. Okay, so like I previously said, previously I believe that three-way friendships start some of these like frenemy scenarios, or scenarios where um one person doesn't like the other, or there's cattiness, etc. So I've been in, like, the most of my friendships have actually been like three-way or plus. um so it's been friend groups, and with that, there's always people that are closer than others. With all of those scenarios that I've had, there have been groups of people that are closer, Um, how I personally maneuver that, I just got close to one person. But being like, and like, as far as like group chats, interactions in public with each other and stuff like that, you realize you really don't like the others, or you don't like one person, or when you have close relationships with one actual person, they act differently. Those are most of the comments. So like one scenario, when I was in one of my higher academic I had one friend, and she introduced another friend to the scenario, which would make us a trio, but it was her friend that she introduced, and I was her friend. So she was like the mediator, or the medium to our trio. And she always wanted to hang out as a trio. So that was an interesting dynamic, because prior to, I was always hanging out with her one-on-one. Now we're a trio, and it's like we grew apart from that relationship, because it's like you're going to probably find more commonalities with one, with the other person. Or two, there were scenarios where I just felt uncomfortable being with her other, like being around her other friend. So then I would be excluding myself from situations. Even we all three had a group chat, but we would just text her on the side. Like, we would rarely even use the group chat. Or she would text the group chat, because she probably didn't want to text each person on the side. So dynamics like that is like, are, harboring drama. And then like there was also instances where like the other friend was trying to like be catty and like, say stuff about her, but I never entertained those things. But definitely three-way friendships can definitely start some drama. Like, and I'm like, if you're doing that with her, I know you're doing that about me. So, it's just because you're closer with her. So three-way friendships or plus, I just feel like it's never great. Because even when I was in larger friend groups, it was the same dynamic, where it's like people are texting people on the side, or they're they're meeting up and stuff and doing stuff without you, and you're like, oh, I didn't know about that. And they're like, oh, well, I would invite you next time. But it wasn't that prior to. That wasn't the relationship prior to. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, you're being left out. Or the feeling of left out. So I don't think that's necessarily a friend to me. The cattiness of it, yes, definitely that's a friend to me. Like, you talking about somebody behind their back, but then to their face, y'all friends, or y'all present as friends to the public. But then you have all of these poor opinions about them. When, if they're your friend, you should be able to address those things with them.
I will say, just to pick up right there, I think sometimes people don't address with a friend because maybe they've tried to and it gets nowhere, or maybe they're trying to check and say, am I tripping? Like, does she or he not do this? Like, am I tripping? So sometimes it's a temperature check. But I think when it goes on to just like extended conversations over and over about it, I think that becomes gossip and it's just no good. So, I think that friend groups can work. I think if there's a mutual level of respect amongst the group, and then people will have their different relationships with individuals, but I think friend groups come with maturity and the understanding that not everybody's going to have the same relationship. But I have been in situations where I've been in friend group, and like you mentioned, they go out and you're not invited. I think it's one thing when it's like 5 and 6 and 7 people, but when you're talking about 3, right, it's a direct, knowingness that you were excluded. And so I've been in situations like that. It was like, oh yeah, we thought we invited you.
Or this is the kicker, they talk about things that you have no idea what they're talking about, and then they're like looking around like,
Right.
I'm just like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Oh, you were there? Like, no, I wasn't. Like,
I think for me at least, and I think for other people around the globe, that the pandemic has really reorganized and reshuffled the deck in how we view our lives, our relationships with people, especially our friendships. And so having time to just decompress and be home, or I guess really isolate, you can kind of go through and think about what's meaningful to you. And I think some of us in general have consistently put ourselves in uncomfortable situations for the sake of keeping a friendship or looking like you don't have an issue, you know. So but I think it's been a reset with the pandemic. It's like, I don't care to be around your friends, so no thank you, I actually don't want to go, you know. So yeah, that's just my thought on that. Any other stories? Because you have really good stories about friend groups.
mine was is a friend group that I believe was forced.
Mm-hmm.
And that could have brought about the outcome of the situation. So basically, it was two females that were part of a sorority together. And one of the sisters, so one of her line sisters, got pregnant by the other line sister's boyfriend, and she was pregnant with twins. Um, the details on whether the person knew about the relationship prior to is open.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's safe to assume that she may have knew prior to. But now the dynamics of that sisterhood within the entire sorority has changed because people have taken sides um, for each line sister, so it divided that line significantly, and that's that's they were supposed to be friends first. Well, they're supposed to be sisters first, actually, but then friends. If you was intentionally cheating, that's definitely a frenemy. Like, you sleeping with somebody's guy, that's a frenemy.
And there are a lot of stories floating around the web about people taking trips out of the country, and some people unfortunately not making it back. And there's a big question of what happened. I know I've experienced and seen, you know, you go out to a club and one friend gets too drunk and people just don't want to be bothered, but that's actually a really serious safety risk to like let your friends kind of walk off, um, even if it's just to the restroom. So I think it's important to surround yourself with people that you feel the genuine togetherness and connection with. And if you start to see that cattiness jumping out, to try to address it head on and get to the root of it. If it remains unresolved and the actions continue, you may have to pivot that friendship, or you may have to end it because she's not your sis. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You know, I want to highlight this one more time. Like, there's endless stories on YouTube. People being text the wrong text message. You really see what people, or people getting screenshots of other text messages and how somebody talking about them, and you know, trying to undercut friends that have helped you. Maybe they live with you, maybe you let them use your car. Like, I'm talking about beyond just being friends and helping each other. I'm talking about really like saving people from dire situations, um, concerning like housing or work and things like that, or finances. And even still, that's not enough for.
But even people's emotions, that could be dire situations as
Yeah, it
well.
can be. I mean,
People are feeling low at one point, and
mm-hmm.
you're helping them through that. And sometimes the friendship doesn't get to see the light of day, but then they cherish other friends that wasn't there at their low point.
That happens as well. So I think if you look at it, if you think about life, like most people have motives or intentions behind things. That's a fairly new concept for me because I never formed friendships like, oh, this is what I can get from this person, or this is what I can gain, or what have you. But I think a lot of, just in general, just know that there's a 50-50 chance that your friend may be viewing you that way. And so with that, you can kind of try to define, what category do I fall into? Am I the friend that just get called for emergencies, or to talk about their problems and that emotional dumping that happens? Or am I the fun friend where we just go out all the time? Am I the travel friend? Am I the spiritual friend? And sometimes you can play different roles, but I think if you understand how you're being relied on in that, how you're primarily being relied on in that friendship, I think it may provide some clarity as to where you guys really are.
I agree.
And sometimes a friendship is not a whole 360. Sometimes it's 180.
So can we leave the viewers with any advice on how to identify a frenemy? I would definitely say some of the Salai comments are definitely a red flag. I think those are the most abrupt and apparent, especially see the way they act around men. If they act differently in a way where they are intentionally embarrassing you to be in the spotlight, I think that is also a red flag. And I would just say, if you see the way they interact or speak about other people, so if they're gossiping with you about others, just assume that they might be doing the same about you to others.
Right. And try not to engage in that yourself, even if it may be interesting or whatever. Try not to engage, because it's never good. I think those are all good points. I think I would also add, how do you feel? Literally, do you constantly feel uncomfortable, like you're questioning what was said or why it was said, and you don't want to be hypersensitive in a way that you're offended by any and everything, but you do want to be in tune with yourself, and because your gut will tell you most times. In friendships, it's important to trust your friends, but it's also important to trust yourself. So I think that's all I have. So anything else from you, little sis?
Remember to repost and review each episode. That helps a lot. And leave your comments down in the comment section.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Talk
All right,
soon.
bye.
Bye.